Welcome to a walk through shadows. Join us as we shine a light on all things that might possibly be strange and paranormal. Each week we will share stories that may be based in fact. It could be a complete fabrication. But as always, we will discuss each of these in depth and why they mattered. Hello, uh, I'm your host, Charlie Romans, who, as always, my amazing co host, Samantha Romans. And I hope you got your walking shoes on because here we are for another walk through shadow. On this episode, we're discussing birthdays. And birthdays have always been held sort of like an almost magical, place in human history. Everything from determining where you're going to be in life to the ladies sometimes denying that they've had as many as they actually have. And men are that way too. So I'm not just picking on the ladies. We don't want people. We want people to remember a birthday. We don't remember how many they've had. At this particular point in time, if you were to light all my candles at once, you'd love to start a brush fire. But uh, these things have always been important to people. Being a huge fan of fantasy literature, of course, there's always the staple line in the beginning of any epic. I was born on a night when the wolves howled and the moon turned red as blood. And now that sign kind of sets up for a good rousing epic heroic tale, and carries forward in the future. And in 1946, Tennessee Ernie Ford recorded a song called 16 Tons. It was about coal mining in Kentucky. And the beginning line of it was, I was born one morning when the sun didn't shine. I picked up a shovel and I walked to the mine. And then, of course, he loaded the 16 tons, which the song was all about. Now, uh, somewhere between those two is where most of the beliefs, superstitions, and things of that nature regarding birthdays, and they fall between those two extremes. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to read you some things and tell you some stories, and we'll discuss these, and you can uh, go along with us and try to decide if the stories we share are true stories or fabricated. So, birthdays, superstitions, and traditions. Okay, there was a very popular rhyme that highlighted where birthdays placed a person. Okay, and it goes like this: Monday's child is fair of face, Tuesday's child is full of grace, Wednesday's child is full of woe, Thursday's child has far to go, Friday's child is loving and giving, Saturday's child works hard for a living. But the child that is born on the Sabbath day is bonny and blithe, good and gay. According to this 19th century English nursery rhyme, the day of your birth can predict how your life will turn out. Samantha and I both actually were born on Saturday, so I guess we're going to have to work hard for a living all of our lives. Um, in Appalachia, where we're from, it is believed you can tell the future by means of certain quotations from the Bible. For example, the 21st and 31st chapters of Proverbs have 31 verses. Each corresponds to a day of the month. 21st chapter for men and 31st chapter for women. Proverbs 21, verse 5. The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. And in Proverbs 31, verse 12, she brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. You can also predict a baby's future on his or her first birthday by placing the child on the floor with the following items: a deck of cards, a whiskey bottle, a Bible, and some money, all within reach. If the baby picks up the cards, they will be a gambler or risk taker. If they pick up the bottle, a drunkard. The money means they will grow up to be well to do, and selecting the Bible means they'll grow up to be a preacher. teacher, to continue that, a preacher, a teacher, or someone in good standing within the community. Of course, everyone knows blowing out all the candles on your birthday cake ensures you'll get whatever wish you make before attempting to blow the candles out, provided, of course, that you keep your wish a secret. The custom of making a birthday wish probably originated in Germany, where people added an extra large candle in the middle of the cake. Just blowing out the large candle meant your wish would come true. Another superstition says that the last candle to go out must be bitten on the end and saved to use again on next year's cake. The cake itself also has traditions and superstitions. In a move that may shake up modern healthcare professionals and parents everywhere, some superstitions call for baking objects in a young person's cake. A ring found in your piece of cake signifies you will be the next to marry. If you are already married, finding the ring simply provides a boost of luck to the marriage. Some people follow a tradition that requires adding a dime to the mix before baking. Whoever gets the slice with a dime is destined to become rich. Finally, if a slice of cake tips over on your plate, that seems to be an indication that you will never marry. Now, in Portugal, the responsibility to cut and serve the cake always falls on the person celebrating their birthday. The gesture is a symbol of sharing their prosperity with friends and family. In ancient Greece, cake was served as a lunar cycle offering to the god Artemis. The cakes were baked in a circular shape and adorned with a candle to represent the full moon. Later, in Britain and Ireland, the custom was to put a single candle on the cake to symbolize Lebenslicht, meaning light of life. And I'm sorry if I mangled that, but I'm not German. But in Germany and Switzerland, the birthday cake had to have lights arranged around it, one candle for each year of life. Okay, how to get lucky on your birthday. This would be a good one. Hopefully it would apply more days than just your birthday. In some cultures, it is believed to wish someone a happy birthday first thing in the morning will grant the birthday boy or girl extreme luck for the coming year. You should put a pat of butter on your nose on your birthday for good luck. And it might actually help your skin too. You never know. Uh, it is also the best day of the year to start a business. Starting on your birthday ensures your success. And one should always have an odd number of candles on your birthday cake to be lucky, even if you have to add an extra candle. Europe and the Caucasus regions have this interesting tidbit of birthday lore. If you stumble with your right leg and your birthday is an odd day, it is good luck. If you stumble with your left leg and your birthday is an even date, that's also good luck. But stumbling with the wrong combination, right leg even day, left leg odd day, is very bad luck. That would seem to be difficult to remember. You'd have to depend on chance. Okay. Appalachian Hill folk believe if something bad or annoying happens on your birthday, you're likely to have bad luck all year. Very fatalistic Appalachian Hill folk. Don't celebrate early or even wish someone a happy birthday in advance. In some parts of the world, this will bring bad luck for both parties. Russia and Germany both often avoid giving gifts until the day after the birthday. Getting married on your birthday is thought to bring bad luck in love. One should also avoid marrying anyone whose birthday is in the same month as yours. It means a stormy marriage. If you are sick on your birthday, it means bad luck for the rest of the year. Superstition also says that if you're sick, gift giving will have to wait because birthday gifts to an ill person means it could be their last and they won't be here to get gifts for their next birthday. Definitely would want to avoid that one. But it is lucky to die on your birthday. Conversely, sure, you'll be dead, but your salvation is practically guaranteed, if that's any comfort. In some countries, it is very good luck to honestly forget your birthday, but other cultures say it is a definite sign you'll die before your next birthday. Now, of course, a lot of these seem to be conflicting, and often these things are based on region, philosophy, even religion, and things of that nature. And it's important to note before we go on to the stories here that uh, these myths and beliefs and everything around birthdays, they harken back to the old days of what you could call proto science, the sciences that existed before uh, what we consider now to be modern science. Now, a lot of these proto science were discredited, and then later, when people learned more, they were recredited and often discredited again. I guess it depends upon who's running the credit department and what kind of mood they are on any given day. Now, over to you here, Sam. Based on just some of these things we've said so far, what are your thoughts on uh, what is tied up in the day that you actually uh, break through the calendar into life?
I mean, I know that like especially like Chinese have like the whole
Mhm.
zodiac and
Yeah.
everything, and people seem to say that that's like actually pretty accurate.
Mhm.
Which I mean that's year, that's not day,
Right.
but I mean there's also you know months and stuff. You know what I mean? Um, so people say that it's pretty accurate at like depicting like how your life is. So I can see any of them being a good indication of luck or not.
Well, as I mentioned, we referred to the proto sciences there. Uh, a lot of this is wrapped up in things like astrology and
Mm-hmm.
numerology and things of that nature. And these were the first beginnings of people trying to understand life and how
Yeah.
things worked. Now, especially months of the year and things like that, I would think to start with, I mean, of course, a child, once they hit the ground, they're like this giant sponge and they soak up everything that is around them. Well, a child born in spring is going to be exposed to much more different things than a child born in winter, for instance.
Yeah.
So some of these things actually play out in, a logical pattern.
And I feel like too, like so like the months that you remember the most would also affect you. Based on like so they say that you don't really remember anything until you're 5.
Mm.
So I mean, obviously there's people that remember things before they're 5, but like they say like when you were 5 is kind of when you start remembering things. And if you are starting to remember things and it's beautiful around and
Mm.
there's flowers and birds and all that, you're gonna have probably a much better outlook on life than like your first memories being like, oh, it was cold and the power kept going out and like
Right,
you
yeah.
know
Well, that makes perfect sense, yes. And some people attributed this to some sort of supernatural
mm-hmm.
agency. Other people attributed it to basically just life itself.
I know there's a lot of people that like um moon phases,
Yes.
that during like when you were born the moon phase affects like how you're supposed to be like as a person. And I mean like in Skyrim they go so far as like the Khajiit
Mm.
are like some of them are just straight up just cats depending
Yeah.
on when the you
Okay.
know uh moon is during their birth. So I mean if pop culture has made it such a big thing about the moon phase of one's birth, I feel like that kind of, would be at least a little bit, you know, of something.
Right. We see external forces always have an effect. And because if nothing else, we respond to these. It's something you said, like, cold all the time, power kept going out.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, I remember reading a lot of the old books. Jack London was a very good writer and wrote about survival and stuff like that. One of my favorite stories of all the time was To Build a Fire. about a greenhorn in the Yukon that actually failed to build a fire. London was famous for books like Call of the Wild and White Fang. Okay, but the type of books he wrote, uh, a lot of times, and he pointed this out, if a person endured near starvation, then later in life, after if that's even of course they survived, they would often develop an eating problem. Mm-hmm. The only thing I can figure is I must have been really hungry at one point in my life, uh, but uh, but these things are all causative factors. But let's get back to the stories here. We're going to tell three stories, and you can try to figure out with us whether they're true or made up. Okay, story number one. When a man reaches the age of 61 in Japan, he enters his Kanriki, second childhood. He must wear a red hat and red vest to symbolize his return to childhood. From this point on, he can forget all his troubles and receive the gift of a clean slate, a rebirth of sorts. Okay, and yeah, I need one of those. I'm over 61. In Korea, that gift comes a little sooner. When a person in Korea reaches the age of 60, they can return to, excuse me, the year they were born and essentially start over. That would be nice to get a do over, a mulligan of sorts. Uh, and Interesting thought, whether it's true or not, we'll find that out later. The second, okay, there are several traditions concerning birthday food. A peach shaped cake is a lucky symbol. In China, the birthday person eats long noodles for a long life or vermicelli for good luck. In India, people believe eating salt on your birthday is bad luck. Salt figures into a lot of superstitions. And Pennsylvania Germans have a tradition that requires you to eat a donut on your birthday. I would be telling them every day was my birthday. I go to a different German village every day. It requires you to eat a donut on your birthday for good luck and guarantees you'll live another year. I am functionally at this point immortal. Yeah. Okay, number three. Americans follow the tradition of spanking the birthday boy or girl, one gentle whack for every year of life, and one a bit harder to grow on. And in some places, one to live on, one to eat on, one to be happy on, and one to get married on. But Italians have a slightly more bizarre custom for the birthday boy or girl, a tug on the earlobe. So the tradition stems from the idea that long ears are seen as a sign that you will live a long life. I have big ears. I should live quite a while. Okay. To increase the length of the earlobes, at least symbolically, you should give your earlobe a slight tug for each year of your life. You can also ask trusted friends and family members to help with the tradition. Performing this ritual is said to bring good luck in life and in the year to come. Okay, so there's a couple of interesting stories there. Uh, as far as the beliefs, there's a couple of strange beliefs. And one of these beliefs, the first one I'm going to lead off with, I actually shared this on another podcast here on the Web Network. Uh, I was telling Mercedes Lucky Benedict and Josh Sparks on Explaining the Unexplainable that people believe that if you were born on Christmas Day, you're destined to be a werewolf. Mm-hmm. And of course, all the bad luck that being a werewolf would entail. And ideally, it's seen as an affront to Jesus to be born on his birthday. But I really can't see Jesus cursing people for lycanthropy.
It's kind of funny. Whenever I was in middle school, I had a teacher that was born on Christmas. Mm-hmm. And I met him again as an adult, and I was like, I never forgot you. And he's like, okay, well, why? And he, assuming, it was, his class was so cool. I was like, yeah. Because you're a werewolf. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, people born on Christmas are supposed to be werewolves. And he's like, never heard that one before, but it makes a lot of sense.
Well, it's a very old legend. Mm-hmm. And even when I was very young, I liked reading about very old things. One of the other traditions, if you're born with a birth caul, which is essentially an extra flap of skin,
Mm-hmm.
it meant that you were destined to achieve greatness. And there was all sorts of other ancillary legends involving what to do with that birth caul. One of the more famous people in history, whether this person actually existed or not, that was supposed to have been born that way, was Merlin from, of course, King Arthur fame, Merlin the Wizard. Now, conversely, it might not have been the birth caul because Merlin himself was. Um, it was implied that he was part demon, so which is how he got his magical power. But the legend persisted nonetheless. So there's not really many of these strange things. Like I said, I was born on Saturday. I remember Dad used to tell the story. I was born like 3 o'clock in the morning, and they come in and shook him awake. Said, "Mr. Romans, have you seen your son?" He's like, "I didn't know I had his son," because he just slept right through it. Mom, she's a real trooper. She went there and had me and everything. The only other thing, and this didn't happen on my birthday, but I'm assuming that I probably would have done the same. I was like 2 or 3 days old, and my mother had with me in one of these little baby carriers. And of course, she had two other kids. My older brother, and I'll correct, since he's not here, I'll correct myself for him, my eldest brother, uh, and my older sister, and I guess they would apply eldest sister too. Uh, they were 4 and 5. So my mom brought this screaming baby home and still had to take care of the two kids. So the story was that she's standing there at the kitchen stove fixing breakfast for the kids, and she's frying bacon. And she had sat me down in the middle of the table in my little carrier, and she just happened to look around, and I had shaped this carrier all the way to the edge of the table, trying to get to the bacon. Now that kind of it indicates the future because here it is 61, almost 62 years later, and I am still a huge fan of bacon. So
It's that song "Reps and Bacon" on it. It's just
reps
about
and
you.
yes, it is. Makes everything better. Okay, I guess I shouldn't put these up. Okay, now what do you think about the first story here about in Japan and Korea? Uh, Thinking that once a man reaches a certain age, he can just get a mulligan, a do over, and
Honestly, any of those I feel like could be true. Like not even necessarily just the first one, but like all three of them, because like people do some weird stuff on their birthdays.
well, they do, and in Western culture, a lot of it involves, well, I mean, unfortunately, heavy drinking because a lot of people go out and they tie one on their birthday, uh, and other more bizarre habits. Uh, Personally, I mean, I enjoy a good meal, sit down, put my feet up. And incidentally, not that she would go out and tear on a raging bender or anything like that. Uh, this episode, of course, is dedicated to my long suffering wife. Today is her birthday. So, anyone that wishes happy birthday, just send those good thoughts along. She needs some good thoughts. She's been married to me for quite some time, after all, and that's got to wear on anyone. So, the second story here, Sam, about the shape of the birthday cake and the things that are put in the birthday cake and whatnot. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, a dime in your birthday cake is disgusting. Like I understand that like maybe you'll be rich if you find it, but like I'm not sure it's worth it. I know where dimes have been.
Well, it's funny because modern money is nasty. They say that every dollar bill and most, I think, $20 bills have trace elements of cocaine on it.
Yeah.
So, and money is nasty.
Yeah.
Now, back in the day, of course, maybe they didn't have as good a hygiene or disinfectants as we have, but money didn't change as many hands.
Yeah.
So possibly it wasn't quite as nasty as it is today.
But honestly, that one seems kind of believable to me because I know like, is it for Mardi Gras or something? Like there's like the baby in the cake.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean,
Well,
either whoever made it up wink, wink. Um, birthday girl in there. If it's made up, it's probably based around the baby and the cake thing. But I mean, it makes it kind of believable, where people have done weird stuff in cake.
Now we've been being a little flippant here, but when you take the ingredients, these I guess you could say foreign objects put in the cake.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Most of the money is some sort of copper base. And we discussed last time how copper, even from the ancient Egyptians at least, they believed that copper was a conduit for magical energy. Rings of any sort, just the shape of the ring represents continuity.
Yeah.
So all of these things that could be possibly put in there, even down to the donut, which is also a perfect circle, unbroken, represents continuity. And in my case, it would represent the continuity that yes, in the future I will eat additional donuts. But but all of these things have some basis in ancient legend and ancient lore. Okay. Now, okay, what do you think about the tradition of spanking? Do you think that carries forward, or is it just uh, an excuse to abuse someone on their birthday? Here's a present. Let me smack you 20 times.
I mean, I've heard a lot about the spanking on birthdays, so that one doesn't faze me. But the pulling on the ear is kind of a weird.
Yes.
But honestly, I can see it because people do some weird stuff.
Well, they do, and the things like this, and uh, making motions to, of course, now we know this as hook'em horns and stuff like that. But it's an ancient symbol that's supposed to ward off evil. That and spitting, which I won't do here because it's kind of gross. Uh, but so all of these, like I said, they harken back to ancient beliefs and ancient patterns and things of that nature. So, do you think whether this one here is accurate or made up?
Well, I mean, at least the first half is
Okay.
accurate. So, I mean, I can see people pulling on ears.
Okay. Well, now I think that at least the majority of all three of these, I think these are true. Mm-hmm. I think they can be traced back to an actual fact. Uh, so, what's your thought?
Yeah, I mean, like I've said, people do weird stuff for their birthdays, and like I can see people putting stuff in their food. I can see people pulling on ears. Yeah. The one that really interests me is the one where you get to start over at 61. That's kind of cool. I don't know how true that is. I'm obviously not Japanese or Korean, but it would be really cool.
Well, it was like I said, I'm 60. Yeah, I'm that age. Okay, I'm not hiding anything from anyone. Okay, but I am old enough for a do-over, and I would like one, please. So if anybody knows what department is in control of do-overs, please give them my telephone number and my location because I would like to talk to them about this.
You'd have to get a vest and a hat, though.
Well, yeah, I would. I get a red hat. Well, most of my stuff tends to be dark. Okay, so I think they're all true. Will you think they're all true?
Yeah.
Okay, well now we've turned down the tag here to find the answer. They are all true traditions or superstitions.
Yeah, I can see that.
So what do you think about all the bizarre stuff that people do for their birthdays? And you've heard me go on and blow for years talking about different things. Your generation, and you're closer to the younger generation than I am, what are some of the superstitions or even just the habits or patterns that younger people follow on their birthday?
I feel like younger people don't really have as many superstitions because, like, especially like people younger than me, I've noticed like they don't like not even necessarily about birthdays, but like there's a whole like if a black cat passes your path, that's bad luck, or walking under a ladder and stuff like that. Like they just don't care. Like it,
well, now,
they don't seem to have any superstitions.
Now, why do you think that is? Because now you want to discuss legends. Okay, now we have more recent legends, but legends are carried down for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And if you want to look at society as a whole, I remember it's not too long ago. I was taking a college class, and the lady that was giving the lecture there, she was in her 80s, and she said she worked for the Census Bureau. She said that when she was born, there were roughly 1.5 billion people on the entire planet. Okay, that they had track of, and she said during the course of her lifetime, that number had increased to 7 billion. Mm-hmm. Okay, and 7 billion, that increase uh, in just the span of less than 100 years is staggering.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, One of the ways that legend takes hold, all right, and I stress this to people all the time, not even necessarily about the supernatural, but we really have become a global culture because we're exposed to people on the other side of the planet that we typically wouldn't be exposed to. When I was a young person, if you, for instance, got on a plane and flew over into one of the Asian countries, then you either were in the service or you had a job that took you there. And we're talking about a career, not just an entry level job, or you were, in fact, just rich. Well, see, now due to all the globalization, people travel all the time. And it's nothing for somebody from a small town in Kentucky just hop on a plane and go to, Taiwan because, well, like I said, the network of travel is there. Mm-hmm. Now, what that does is it prevents isolation. So, isolation kind of engenders legends.
Yeah.
Eh, Well,
I feel like now a lot of like the legends are like TikTok things. And that sounds like weird, I know, but like TikTok and like YouTube and stuff, there's like, oh, if you like do these like set of buttons on an elevator, then it'll take you to like secret floors and stuff like that. Like, and like people believe these things, and like, or like, the middle of the night challenges, like where, you summon things in the middle of the night, and like, there's like the Daruma song, where like if you're in the bathtub, like, and you turn out the lights, then like apparently she'll show up in your bathtub with you and stuff. And like it's like Bloody Mary kind of,
right.
But like, things that are on like TikTok and YouTube like that, whether it's, actually based in like an actual real legend, or made up for like TikTok likes or YouTube follows, whatever, that's like kind of become the new popular like legends. And I think that like younger people aren't really hearing like the, legends, like the old legends, because I feel like there's like a disconnect between like the young people and the older people, because like young people are so invested online, like they, are only really interacting with each other online, and they're not interacting with their grandparents as much as like, you know, I interacted with my grandparents a lot more than I know that like younger people did. And, so I heard a lot more stories about that, but I'm sure that I didn't hear as many stories, and I didn't, interact with my grandparents nearly as much as you did.
No, no.
And that's not necessarily because of anything that I did. It's just the time I grew up in, and the time that these kids are growing up in, where like, they're on their iPads all the time. And so that's their legends. That's what they're hearing. And there's not, an 80-year-old on TikTok talking about legends from hundreds of years ago.
There should be, though. If you're 80 years old and you want to talk about things that your grandparents talked about, you need to contact the Web Network, because I'm sure Stan would give you a show.
I mean, I think it would be cool. I'm just saying, like, that's kind of like an untapped market, because a lot of people that age don't really know how to use technology the same way that younger people do. So you don't really hear those legends online unless you're looking for legends.
Yes, yes,
You
you
know,
have to do a search,
yeah.
and then, as you said, a lot of these legends now are made up, and
Hmm.
which I know that sounds maybe disingenuous to say that this legend's true, that legend
Hmm.
isn't, but there is more of a potential for that to be made up now because they actually manufacture these things. And we have
So
a comment
yeah,
there,
we got a comment. It seems to be a recent trend to have a birthday week or even birthday month instead of celebrating one day,
right? Yes,
which is true.
and I have seen that. You mentioned social media. I've seen that on Facebook and on Instagram and other places uh, where they'll throw it out. Oh, this is my birthday month, leading up to my birthday,
Yeah.
and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Uh,
I don't know. I'm a big fan of the birthday week. It gives people a week that they can't be mean to me. So,
right. Well,
I'm okay with that.
I normally don't tolerate the meanness, but yeah, I mean. Uh, I'll just throw this out there. September is my birthday month. So if anybody wants to be nice to me during the month of September, get a jump on it. Avoid the crowd. Start now. But that is a huge thing
Hmm.
because well, for one thing, and I've noticed this. Of course, my background is in journalism. Okay, you have to. There's a sweet spot for people's attention. It has absolutely nothing to do with intellect or retention. What it has to do with all the other random factors coming into play. So if you have an event coming up, you want to advertise it, you have to advertise it
Hmm.
regularly. Not every day, because then you have an overload.
Hmm.
But if you're throwing out, oh, it's my birthday week or it's my birthday month, and you throw that out once in a while leading up to your birthday, it reminds people, oh, yeah, Sam's birthday is coming up.
Yeah.
And even if it's not like I better run out and buy a gift, it's like, well, I better be nice to Sam because she's having a birthday.
Yeah. And I feel like another weird thing is like the half birthdays. Like, I feel like that's kind of become a trend too. Like, halfway to your birthday, you have like a birthday celebration. And like, I've seen that before for like twins, which makes sense because then they get like two birthdays, versus one shared birthday.
Right.
But like, people just do that. And that just seems wild to me. Like, having like a half birthday.
We see, and again, it ties into culture. Now, the uh, that would not, and how we're exposed from
Mm-hmm.
different places. And I've said this before, for years, really. There's a lot of culture shock within the United States, for instance. Like
Mm-hmm.
people who grew up in Southern California have entirely different experiences than people that grew up in Northern Maine, for instance. There's a radically different, and even within, you get a state, for instance, the size of Texas.
Yeah.
Texas is huge. It's bigger than most other countries on the planet. So, Northeast Texas and I'm sorry, and Southwest Texas could even have culture shock there.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about these biannual birthdays, as it were. That would never have started in eastern Kentucky in Appalachia, and the reason
Yeah.
it wouldn't have is because I mentioned before the Appalachian Hill folk are kind of fatalistic. We are, and one of my favorite sayings in Appalachia is, "Well, don't get above your raisins."
Mm-hmm.
And that just means don't be arrogant. So no one, at least in previous generations of Appalachia,
Mm-hmm.
would recommend you celebrating your birthday twice a year because that fatalistic thing would kick in. Is you better quit celebrating your birthdays, you'll outlive half your life.
Yeah.
So, but now in other areas where people perhaps are not as fatalistic, uh, then perhaps it's like, oh yeah, I celebrate it every month.
Yeah. I feel like it's very like, I don't know, maybe I don't know enough about California
Mm-hmm.
to really say for sure, but it seems like a California thing. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like, just be like, yeah, I think I'm just gonna celebrate my birthday halfway to my birthday because I can't wait. That
Right.
just seems very Californian.
Well, yeah, it does. I mean, nothing against California
No.
whatsoever, uh, but it is just different culture and different cultural patterns. Now, let's revisit one of the legends about birthdays. Let's talk about being a werewolf when you're
Mm-hmm.
born on Christmas. Now, one of the more popular stories, instances of this, and trying to subvert fate, as it were. The legend stated that, okay, if you are born on Christmas, you're insulting God, so you're going to be cursed with lycanthropy. Well, there was a boy uh, born in an English village centuries ago on Christmas Day. Family was well liked, uh, and they knew that he was going to be cursed. But the village made allowances.
Mm-hmm.
Now, keep in mind, fate always gets its due. So, uh, the village accommodates the boy, and he even grows up and he marries,
Mm-hmm.
and his he the villagers all plan. They put up a livestock and bolt their doors and everything around the time of the full moon, and the kids just out there raging, chasing wild animals and stuff like that. Well, as I said, he got married, and him and his wife had a small child.
Mm-hmm.
Well, perhaps it was because the exhaustion rather inherent in dealing with a new child, or just a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, One Christmas morning, oh yeah, the day after the full moon, rather. I'm sorry, I spoke myself. They had a signal
Mm-hmm.
when he would return to his human form. He would knock on a door in a certain way, and then she would let him in, and of course, take care of him and everything. So one morning following the full moon, she hears that knock, what she thinks is a knock on the door, but she didn't hear it correctly. So she opens the door. Her husband is still in his uh, werewolf form, and he, well, according to the story, he kills her and the newborn child. Still, the villagers feel sorry for the boy because they know it wasn't, he would never intend to do that because he loved his
Mm-hmm.
wife, loved his child. They tried to console him, but he was inconsolable, and eventually he ran away from the village.
Mm-hmm.
And, nothing was ever said about what happened to him, whether he found another village to care for him or just passed into oblivion. No one really knows. And honestly, like a lot of these old tales, it isn't really recorded in a way that you could prove whether it happened or not. But it's an interesting tale that points out both people's capacity for compassion and their unwillingness to accept a bad fate,
Mm-hmm.
along with the proof, of course, that you can't resist your fate.
We have a comment that says
Okay.
thoughts on fate versus destiny.
Well, that's a little splitting hairs there, but uh, fate is just a little more malleable. Uh, Destiny, well, depends on how you interpret it. But both of those things, according to old legends, are unavoidable.
I feel like one has much better connotation than the other because I feel like fate usually means like bad, like
Mm-hmm.
oh, it was your fate that you were always gonna be bad off or something. But your destiny, that seems like more uplifting, like oh, you were destined for greatness.
Right.
So I feel like that
Now,
too.
well, I agree with that. But qualified greatness, and that's the thing. Say you're destined for greatness, like being born with a birth cold. Okay. Destined for greatness. Would the person who committed atrocities be considered great, or would it have to be a positive thing? And I'm trying to avoid the obvious analogy that greatness doesn't have to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And for instance, uh, I'll just say it. Nazi Germany, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
uh, not endorsing their methods at all, not endorsing any of the hate or anything like that. But this is a group of people that quite literally conquered most of the known world. So, and that could be construed as we won't say great, we'll say effective.
Mm-hmm.
And but now fate, on the other hand, fate's like well, you are it's like in the old fantasy novels, you are fated to destroy a great evil, or you are fated to become the great evil.
Mm-hmm.
It really, you know, it's but how you do it, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a firm believer, a proponent of anything like predestination or
Mm-hmm.
fate or destiny or anything like that. I'm a fan of possibilities.
I know, like, there's a lot of legends about like birth order. You know, your
Yes.
fate being based on your birth order.
Right.
Like firstborns or only child. You know, they're supposed to be the greatness. You know, they're supposed to be the ones that are, you know, more put together, more, you know, motherly or fatherly, depending on, you know,
Yes.
male or female. You know, they're the ones that are supposed to, you know, be good at a lot of things.
Mm.
And then there's like the middle child is the one that's more independent because, you know, usually they're overlooked.
Mm.
And then there's like, you know, the baby that's like, you know, the one that's supposed to kind of be, you know, getting what they want all the time. So they aren't as independent.
Mm.
And like going even as far as like, you know, the birth number
Mm.
in some, you know, especially like, you know, now most people only have like 2 or 3 kids.
Right.
You know, like obviously there's people that have more than that.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, now people don't have the same amount of children as they used to.
Right. I
You
mean,
know,
it's the need for a large family is no
Mhm.
longer there.
But like the seventh son of a seventh son
Right. Yes.
was supposed to be like very bad luck.
Oh,
Like
yes.
you were shunned if you were the seventh son of a seventh son.
Right.
Like
But
they wrote a whole like book series about it because of like
see now,
how
interesting about that. Okay. Now those legends predated what you would call the widespread movement of Christianity.
Mhm.
So, not of course that it predated God or anything like that, but in areas before Christianity was spread, people believed in those type of things.
Mhm.
And that ties back to the whole proto sciences and everything like that. For instance, in this case, numerology.
Mhm.
So, and the heavy numerology on the rhyme about the day of the week. Are we gonna?
Yeah, I had always thought it was more fate is the sequence, while destiny was the destination. A fate can change to lead to a new destiny.
Well, yeah, there is something to that, definitely. And it depends upon how you want to explain it. Uh, all ancient religions were involved in this. You know, the ancient Norse believed in the fates, and honestly, even the gods had to follow the edicts of fate. And the ancient Greeks believed the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I don't know, because actually I'm old, but I wasn't there. I don't know what I'll throw in another religion here. I don't know what the genesis of this belief was.
Mm-hmm.
Because it would seem to be if you could watch a person's life and you knew them. Let's take, for instance, from my vantage point, uh, say 40 years ago when I was 20
Mm-hmm.
ish. Uh, so 40 years ago, I watched someone be born.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched their entire life through 40 years. Then by looking at this and seeing the factors and everything, I could say, okay, well, yeah, they were fated to become this. Their destiny was to become
Mm-hmm.
a wonderful singer or a politician or what have you. It would be easy to do that. So I don't know if possibly, like a lot of these legends, they formed over generations.
Mm-hmm.
So say I do that, and I say mention that to you,
Mm-hmm.
and then you do that, and you mention it to your kids, and it passes down to generations, then somewhere along the line, some really clever descendant is going to say, "Hey, these factors point these things out.
Yeah.
So this is your destiny. This, if you are born here with these factors, you have the destiny to be great, to be a hero or a fool." So it's possible that this was simply observation.
Yeah, I can see that. And another thing too, like fate and destiny can be related to birth order because, like, think about it, like you're destined to be the king
Yes.
if you are the firstborn male,
Right.
you know, or you're destined to only be a duke because you weren't born first, you know, and that's not just in Britain, there lots of places that have like kings and queens and
Oh
stuff.
yes, definitely.
It's based on birth order, and that is your destiny. So you are completely raised to fulfill that destiny just because of when you were born.
Exactly.
And like some would go as far as like, you know, the time and date of your birth is like, you're destined to be this kind of ruler because of your time of birth.
Mhm. I can see where that would apply. So
No, that's the same.
same comment. Okay. She has to watch the small screen because I'm not wearing my eyes all the time. But the whole thing of it is, it comes around to all these legends kind of uh, crash into modern day psychology. Okay. And not only psychology, but other fields that study behavior. Uh, it could even be a question of nature versus nurture.
I feel like that's a big thing because the depending on your parents and stuff, you know, now if you were going to be a bad person or you were going to be a good person, there's like a chance that you'll do that no matter what.
Right. Yes.
Like either you'll break the cycle and you won't, like if an abusive parent,
Mhm.
You'll break the cycle and you won't abuse your kids. Or no matter how good your parents are, you might grow up to be a mass murderer.
Yes.
But
yeah, there are aberrations to every rule. Yes.
Overall, if like you have a good upbringing and you're well rounded, I feel like you're more likely to be like successful and people will like you and stuff, versus like if you had a really rough upbringing, you have to work harder to get that. It's not as
Yes.
easily handed to you. Not saying that you can't become greatness, and I guess that goes back to the fate, destiny kind of thing. If that was your destiny to become this greatness, you were going to do that no matter what, no matter how good or bad, your upbringing was. But, it still helps or hinders based on nature and nurture.
Right. And perhaps, I mean, it's difficult to tie in all the random factors that possibly affect someone, but possibly the nurture affects the nature.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about things like birth order and things like that, which I know is only loosely uh, connected to a person's birthday. But like I was the third kid. I mean, honestly, I should have been ignored.
Yeah.
But I definitely wasn't. And I don't feel as though my parents, shunned me or anything like that.
Yeah.
Although, Angel, if you're listening, I do believe that my parents did overindulge my baby sister. And there's a possibility that I may have done that as well. So that's not been proven, so I can't be convicted of that.
But I will say at least part of it is true because I feel like, I mean, obviously, I didn't know you when you were younger because I was not born yet.
Right.
But like from the stories that I've heard about you growing up, you were more independent.
Yes, I was. Absolutely.
That's like very much so a sign of like middle child, because they kind of have to do their own thing, so they're more independent.
Well, and that's true because my older brother and sister, as I said, eldest, only a year apart. So they had built-in playmates.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that my mother brought home this screaming baby. The day she brought me home, my brother and sister said, "Take him back. He cries too much."
Yeah.
And I guess that was my earliest form of talking. I haven't stopped since. But I didn't have a built-in playmate. I had to be, independent, my own playmate, go out and find other playmates. And, I managed to do that. Made a lot of friends, never had any problems doing it.
I feel like, you know, that isn't even necessarily like birth order, but I feel like birth order does play like a big part in it. But like the age gaps and stuff, are a very big part of it. Because like if you're closer in age, you're going to be closer, just in general. It's like twins telepathy and stuff.
Right, yes.
Like obviously they're very close, and like some of you even report like if one of them feels something, the other one feels something. Like if one of them like gets hurt, the other one is like, "Oh man, my arm hurts for some reason."
My cousins, I'll throw them under the bus here. Chuck and Pam. Pam is like a minute older or something like that, and she has held that over Chuck for God my entire life because they're not much younger than I am. But yeah, they've got a connection. It may not be as much as finishing sentences, but yeah, they've got a serious connection that I have noticed since we were all children.
That's a big birth thing because they shared a birth.
Yes.
So like that, and even the birth order seems to like take effect with that too, because like usually the twin that's the couple minutes older is the one that like takes care of the one that's a couple minutes younger, even though they're the same age.
Yes.
Like effectively they are the exact same age.
Right.
The couple minutes don't really matter, but like a lot of them talk about like, oh, I'm the older twin, so I take care of my younger sibling, even though like again it's just a couple minutes.
So really what it comes down to is an affectation placed on them by presumption. Did we have another new comment there, or is that the last one?
Fate is fixed, unchangeable outcome based on external forces. Destiny is an outcome based on choices.
Okay. And yes, but always a but. I believe personally that things can be changed, even if the only change is to resist your fate until the last possible minute and check out, still denying the things that you were supposed to have done. Now, obviously, and it ties back to the whole heroic thing I was talking about, the heroic fantasy. You wouldn't be a good idea to hold on to being evil until the last possible minute and then go out with, yeah, all you good guys can just bite me because I'm evil and I'm going to check out. That wouldn't necessarily be good. But a lot of times, since we can't really understand fate and can't really truly understand destiny, because we're not given an instruction manual to start with, the best we can do is make the best choices and make best decisions that we're able to. And if that's it, then
I think that you had a good point too about like, you don't really know what your fate or destiny is. And, generations from now, you can't always look at it and be like, oh, well, they were destined to be that way. Or, it was fate that they were, like that. Because, like, I mean, think about it, like, with the serial killers. People are like, oh, well, they did these things while they were young. So, like, it was their destiny to turn out like that.
Yes.
When at the time, people either thought it was normal or, oh, yeah, he's a little sketchy, but, like, we don't know what to do with him. It wasn't like, oh, gosh, he's going to become a, mass murderer if I don't, check on this. So I feel like, hindsight is 2020. And like
it can be, because what happens is you see the causative factors after the results.
Combining two recent topics, ethics of testing of twin powers. Does advancement make that type of testing more ethical?
Okay, well, it depends. The question of ethics, of course, comes into play when ethics are being violated. Okay, when there's any sort of damage done. There was a test done where some psychiatrists had really essentially abused children by isolating them, and they all grew up stunted and everything. And they proved a few things, but the sacrifice there, the torture and the torment was not worth anything that could have been learned.
I will say though, I feel like a lot of like twin, like especially like the twin telepathy, like that can be tested without really ethics being broken. You know,
Well, see, I believe it
because
can be too.
you know if you know you say, oh well, think about the ocean, and then you know you go to the other twin, like, oh, what is your twin thinking of?
Right.
Oh well, I think they're thinking of the ocean. You know, like that's not breaking any ethics. You know,
No, it's
that's
not.
not
But if,
harming anyone.
are doing a very dark, there was a really good movie starring Cheech and Chong called The Corsican Brothers. Okay, back in the day, all my references are old. But you if you stabbed one twin, the other one would feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're not going in a dark version of that.
Yeah.
So because anytime you would isolate two, for instance, twins, and hurt one to see if the other cried, then to me that is a severe breach of ethics.
Yeah.
And I would be the first one in line to volunteer to stop that and visit in kind on the person that was ill advised enough to do that experiment.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there is a way to do that without it, like, being bad. Like, if everyone agrees to it, that's one thing. But I also don't think anyone should be able to agree for them.
No,
Like,
no.
If parents have a twin, well, not a twin, a
Mhm.
set of twins, obviously, I don't think that they should be able to be like, oh, yeah, you can test on my kids.
Right.
But if, two consenting adults are like, oh, yeah, you can shock one of us and see if the other one feels the shock. Like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, as long as we're not talking about electrocution.
Mm-hmm.
And you could do that well, actually, in a manner that would be no different than just a stress test that doctors do for people. But well, at any rate, do we have it? Was that the last question we had?
Yep, that was the last question.
Okay, well, we've run out of time. And I could talk all night, but I won't. And Sam would just be nice enough to sit here with me and try to keep me on the rails. But thank you for joining us in Walk Through Shadows. And hopefully we didn't step off into the weeds too deeply. And feel free to join us again next week, same time, same channel, for all you Batman fans. But we'll be here next week discussing more things that exist in the shadows. Until then, have a wonderful evening. And whether it is or not yours, happy birthday. Thank you for being our companion on this week's Walk Through the Shadows. Join us next week when we will share more stories of the paranormal. Until then.